Osun elections, it's just 7 days away, I believe, and it's a highly anticipated poll, I must say to you. The last couple of weeks, there have been a lot of politicking, candidates saying this and this, accusations and counter accusations, and I think it's an election that a lot of Nigerians are waiting to see the outcome of. Of course, we do have several candidates contesting for that particular seat in Osun State. The elections are coming up on Saturday, August 15, by the way. Out of 14 political parties participating in the election, observers have narrowed the race down to 3 primary frontrunners, and that's the incumbent governor, Ademola Adeleke, who is now of the Accord Party. He was previously of the People's Democratic Party, but he since defected to the Accord Party. He's seeking re-election for a historic second term. He's campaigning on his infrastructure delivery and the implementation of a 75,000 naira minimum wage. Many observers have said that Osun State is a civil service state. Munudeen Bola Oyebamiji is more popularly called Bola Oyebamiji. That's the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, affectionately known as AMBO. Oyebamiji is the current managing director, CEO of the National Inland Waterways Authority, and a former Osun State Commissioner for Finance. And then we now have Najim Salam of the Action Democratic Congress, ADC, the former Speaker of the Osun State House of Assembly, represents a formidable third force in the race. And so you see it. Those are just the 3 top people. There are many others who are also contending that position. And joining us on the program this morning to take a look at the intrigues is the Vanessa Gregory, Programs Lead at the Nigeria Women Trust Fund. She joins us virtually on the program. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Right. And so I'm sure that you've been in the lead up to these elections. D-Day is on Saturday, August 15. You've been, I'm sure you've been keenly watching what's been going on in Osun State. All the candidates trying to get the people's votes, saying this is what I'll do, this is what I will do, and all the other political intrigues, of course. What do you make of all these in the run-up to next week's election?
So as usual, when it comes to off-cycle elections, you have a lot going on in the background, and it all is not as it appears in the foreground. So, for Osun, it's one to watch with regards to electoral violence, the state of the state ahead of the elections and after the elections. And also one thing we must look out for is voter apathy, So we are trying to see and encourage citizens to come out and cast their votes. And so we will keep watching the situation and hope for the best.
Yes, and while tracking data revealing that political parties are bypassing physical polling units, cash distributions in favor of pre-election digital bank transfers of up to 10,000 naira, how exactly will, CSO observers like yourself track and document these invisible electronic voter inducements so that when you're monitoring the elections and you're taking a look at what political parties are doing, you can actually come out to say, okay, we saw what happened. We can say that elections in Osun State were indeed free and fair, and there was no vote buying and there were no inducements, and the election is actually the way it was supposed to be.
So the reality is that digital voter inducement is much harder to observe than cash being handed out around polling units. So, and as CSOs, we don't have access to private bank accounts or financial records. So for our approach, it has to be based on reporting, documentation, triangulation, and referral. So where voters voluntarily report receiving transfers linked to the expectation to vote for a particular candidate or a party, as CSOs, we can only document the amount, the date, the transaction alert, if they voluntarily provide that to us, and then also the accompanying messages or instructions that the intermediary involved, where the intermediary has been identified, and whether similar reports are emerging across the community, So one isolated 10,000 naira transfer will not automatically prove voter inducement. But if multiple observers independently report receiving the same amount through similar channels, then this is linked to the same political actor or intermediary and accompanied by the so-called electoral instructions, then we can begin to identify patterns and you see, and then we have to investigate these. So the analysis that we do as observation organizations should not simply ask, was money transferred? We should ask who is being targeted, through what networks, and whether economic vulnerability is being deliberately exploited to influence political choices. So our analysis should not simply ask, was money transferred, because this method of inducement is now electronic, so the method may have changed, but the digital transfer is intended to influence a voter. That still remains inducement. So as CSOs, our responsibility is to ensure that moving vote buying away from the polling unit does not make it invisible.
What kind of collaborations are you going to be involved in as the Nigeria Women Trust Fund with other civil society organizations, and of course including agencies of government like the anti-graft agencies, for instance, to ensure that credible elections take place, and to ensure that the observations across Osun State is tight, and that you get accurate data on whatever going on that you see, or the people that you deploy to monitor see?
So when it comes to collaboration with external organizations outside of the CSO network, we need to start, like I said previously, documenting these evidence. And we also need to stop making broad statements, talking about vote buying occurred. But what we need to do is provide available information to these agencies on the location, the timing, the alleged actors, the witnesses, and also transaction evidence voluntarily supplied by citizens, if we have those, and then patterns across communities, and other corroborating information that can help with these reports. So, we also need to understand that the report needs to go to the appropriate authority, whether that be the EFCC, the ICPC, or INEC. But then, one thing we need to focus on is not the reporting pre or during. We need to focus on what happens to these reports once we have reported them. We need to be asking what happens to the reports. Were they investigated? Was the suspects identified? Were there arrests followed by charges, or if the cases were prosecuted? So, the mechanism is not just simply to observe and hand over. It should be document, refer, track, and publicly hold these institutions accountable for what happens next.
Well, Madam, I'm always concerned about voter turnout. As at the last election, from what we understand, despite Osun State having about 2.3, almost 2.4 million voters, registered voters, historical data says the recent off-cycle elections always attract below 35% of registered voters. Two things here. One, is it a problem of voter awareness? Or two, exaggerated data? Because sometimes it is possible that the data needed review but hasn't been reviewed. So which of them do you think is the issue here?
So I won't explicitly speak to either or. I think they both factor into the situation. So as we know from the 2023 general elections, the cleanup of the voter register, and we're now seeing the true numbers across all the 36 states and the FCT. So with the new technology, with the new electoral laws, or the newer electoral laws, we should say, we are beginning to see the true numbers. And I feel like as time goes along, we will see the exact numbers, because cleaning up of the register, and then we also speak to people actually coming out on election day. Now that the voting time has been considerably cut down, but we can't take away from the fact that there is voter apathy across all the states that we've observed. We're yet to see the numbers for Osun, and I feel like it's until the elections have come and they're concluded, then we can state that this is the reason for these numbers or the low turnout. But it's more about the observation and the waiting to see what the turnout will be on the day.
But I'm not sure, because many times when we talk about voter awareness, it will seem like more often than not we expect INEC to be the only one to do that. And of course, how overwhelmed INEC has been historically documented, so to speak. So we have a responsibility for the politicians, the political parties themselves, that are supposed to be asking people to come support them, come vote for them, and all of that. And then, of course, INEC playing its own role, and civil society organizations such as yours also playing a role in the area of voter awareness. How well would you say these three groups, categories of people have done in that regard? Voter awareness, voter education, particularly the political parties. What's your take on their own role, the political parties' role in ensuring that the voters indeed turn out?
So as you have said, the onus cannot be totally on INEC to conduct voter education. We have CSOs in this space who have conducted various levels of voter education. INEC has conducted voter education. You often, when you go into the communities, you often see that political parties have come into these communities, have come to canvass for votes, but they are not giving voter education in the practical sense as other non-invested entities would. So, as NWTF, going into the community, we're more concerned with knowing your rights and, explaining to the concerned citizens that this would be the way to vote, ensure secrecy of the ballot, But you find that voter education conducted by political parties usually focuses on the proper way to thumbprint, It doesn't give like the basics of civic education. The point of focus is all about garnering that support, getting that vote, But I do believe that we need to put more onus on political parties to conduct better voter education and also to interact with citizens, but not with the objective of securing that individual's thumbprint, so to speak. But again, when you think about the cost of conducting voter education, you have to look at it from the political party's perspective, and they need to see the benefit of conducting the specific voter education, so the non-specific voter education, sorry. So this is something that as CSOs, as concerned citizens, we need to give them a reason to conduct this non-target specific voter education, and hope that maybe it's something we can discuss with INEC, that it needs to be part of the requirements of a political party, conduct such and such a number of sessions of voter CVE sessions, and also make it use a specific curriculum. I don't know. It's something to explore. We can look into it and see how we take this forward.
Right, as we wrap up very quickly, important to parts of this voter education, I suppose, should be for the youth, because this is what we've been canvassing. Lots of youth are being galvanized, motivated, asked to register, collect their PVCs and vote, because they are the future leaders and they must speak now, because as Ayo always says, if you don't vote, then you've lost the right to complain about who is voted into power. So how much are the CSOs, your group and others that you know and that you work with, how much more are you doing with the youth to ensure that they actually get up this time and make up the largest number of people that actually vote?
So this is one area where Nigerian Women Trust Fund, and I'm sure various CSOs have looked into. So, we've gone beyond digital engagement. We've left the social media platforms, although we do as an organization put out CVE on the popular social medias. We've come to realize that a lot of people who engage on social media remain on social media. So we have recently, for both the Ekiti and now the Osun elections, gone into polytechnics, higher learning institutions, and we have discussed the importance of voting, how to vote, where to vote, importance of your PVC accreditation, voter inducement, just peaceful participation, and why citizens should not allow fear or financial inducement to take away their political choice, the youth especially. And we have found that taking voter education down to, where the youth live, study, it makes it easier for us to pass on the message. It also makes it easier for us to interact. So, this is a physical interaction. So we speak, they listen, they respond, we answer questions directly. So having that, a point of contact, someone who can answer your questions in real time, provide correct information, negate misinformation, So when we go into these higher learning institutions, our message is not please come out and vote, is that the youth are not passive beneficiaries of democracy. They are actually the decisive part of the electorate, right, and their political choices have the power to determine who governs them.
Right. I must thank you for your time. Vanessa Gregory, Programs Lead at the Nigerian Women Trust Fund. Thanks again for weighing in on the focus on Osun elections. And I'm sure that you'll be there on that day.
I will. Yes, thank you. All right, thanks again. All right, have a lovely day.
You too.
Bye.
Right, and when we come back, we have another focus. I just simply calls it mindset. Simple, easy, nothing more. We'll be right back.